good evening, good night. It is Andre Bright, your coach. And today we're talking about how to recognize burnout in others. This is a question that's come up a few times. And so today we're going to go through 5 ways to do that, especially for those who are loved ones. Like some of the things that I've noticed, and there's two sides of this coin, right? There's the side of you being the one who is burnt out, and we did a whole episode on how to reach out, and then another one on how to build relationships which can support you reaching out. But then there's the other side of it. What happens if you're the friend or the partner or the family member who is trying to be there for that person who is obviously burning out, or even maybe not obviously? Like one of the things we realize as we do like some of the research is people don't talk. And so how do you know? Like some people are getting really good at covering up how they feel and what they're going through. And so, but there's also like telltale signs if you pay really close attention. And this is something where it takes active listening, it takes observation, it takes noticing the patterns for you to realize what's going on a lot of the time as a friend, as a partner. And so today I'm going to look into that. One of the things I say is that, like, you feel it when people say they're okay, but they're not, when they're forcing it through their teeth, or um, if you feel something, because we have intuition, right? We know people, but sometimes you can't put words to it. You just feel like something is off, like the energy is different. I've got a few friends of mine where they can tell my energy's off before I can sometimes. Are they spiritually in tune? Are they emotionally in tune? Can you sense it in others? And it's really good when you have that kind of person in your camp, so they can notice it about you. But it's also a muscle, it's also a technique, a skill for you to be able to identify it in others, paying attention to the subliminals, to the quiet moments with them. What is it you feel like? What is their gaze saying? There's a lot you can tell about someone's eyes, like where they're looking, how they're looking, what is their facial expression, their tone of voice. Where did it sound like their throat is is choking up on certain topics? Paying attention to things like that, and not just, it's great to have conversations and talk and debate and share stories, etc., but paying attention to what's not said is just as important. They might cross your mind randomly, but regularly. It's, I need to get in touch with this person, or, oh, I wonder what they're going through. There was something about them that was off today. And you don't know why they're coming up in your mind. They just are. They're taking up space in you can't put your finger on it. Like I said before, those times, especially when it starts to become regular, they keep coming back into your mind, is really when I find it's really important to reach out, because your body has noticed something that your mind hasn't, or your energy or your emotions have noticed something that your mind hasn't. There are certain things that there's obviously there's in your IQ, right? Your intelligence quotient is about what you understand about things, what you know, data, facts, your reasoning skills, etc. But there's EQ as well, your emotional quotient. How can you resonate with other people's emotions? Um, One of the things that you see in research is that if you spend enough time with someone in the same room, for example, your heart rates start to sync. And this can happen biologically with women as well, when their menstrual cycles start to sync as well. In general, when we're around different people, we start to resonate with each other. We find a balance. And so internally, there might be something in you that is connecting with someone, something in them that your IQ hasn't caught up to yet, right? What is your SQ, your spiritual quotient? What is your ability for you to connect with something larger than you, right? So these are all important things to pay attention to that we don't necessarily talk about enough in general, but definitely not in this conversation about burnout. What is it that resonates with you and the other person, that tells you that something is wrong in a way that your mind, your IQ can't intellectualize? Like there's something you can't put a finger on, but you know there's something wrong with this person, and they're not telling you. You ask them what's up, you ask them how you can help, but they keep saying no, no, no. But you know there's something more to it. There's something that you've received some kind of information that isn't intellectual, that is telling you that something is off with them. Don't ignore those signs. Continue to persevere. Um, and one of the things that I've seen as well is there's two sides. There's ones when you're concerned with their well-being, right? There's something has happened which has made you really conscious that there's something wrong. But the scariest thing is when you're completely oblivious and they're going through something and you just don't know. And one of the things that happens with there is there's when you do find out is there's an element of guilt sometimes, oh, I should have known, I should have been there. But we don't realize that sometimes people are really good at hiding these things. Yeah. So it's not on you all the time to be able to recognize. But one thing that I would say that helps is creating those environments where people feel safe to come to you about something. And that was in, I think, maybe yesterday or the day before. So here are 5 signs to recognize burnout in others and help loved ones in need. They're in need of something, right? You've got Maslow's hierarchy, you've got the general physiology, but there's just our needs in life. There might be a need and you want to actually help them. You want to be there for them. That's what friendship and relationship is about. It's two-way. They might have been there for you and you want the opportunity to be there for them and they're not allowing you that. How can you recognize it in someone else, sometimes even before they recognize it in themselves? Here are 5 of those ways. Number 1, which is a really good telltale sign that something is up, is changes in behavior. So pay attention to what is noticeable, but what is subtle as well. They might have increased irritability, right? Mood swings. They might withdraw from social activities. That one's a common one. If someone's going through something and they stop showing up to your weekly poker nights, or they stop showing up to football, or they stop showing up to, going out shopping, or you're spending time with you in some kind of way, shape, or form, right? I think sometimes when those things happen, we might internalize it and say, oh, this person's got a problem with me. But sometimes it's actually a wider issue. It's got nothing to do with you. And I think for me that this is something that I've had to learn from life in general, is to take myself out of the picture sometimes. And I'm not doing myself any services by keeping myself as the center of every story. If something's off with somebody and someone has a change of behavior, what would it mean if it had nothing to do with me? If it had nothing to do with me, it means that there's something else going on in their life that they're not telling me about. And that really could be even more serious than it being something to do with me. At least if it's something to do with me, we could just have a conversation and fight it out or something. If it's something to do with them that they're going through, maybe it's something they're really struggling with. And sometimes it pays us no favors in being like, oh my gosh, you didn't talk to me, you didn't call me back, bada, bada, bada. It's not about you all the time, right? So pay attention to those changes in behavior, but in a way that doesn't put you at the center each time. Withdrawal from activities is a good example of that. But they might have difficulty concentrating as well. They might be really good at remembering things and paying attention and being present with you usually, but today or over the last few months, they've been really absent. They've been really distracted. They've been really disconnected from you, from life in general. And you've noticed that usually they got a perk in their step, but nowadays they just seem to be, their shoulders seem heavy. They seem to be in frown mode, resting face a lot of the time. Like, what is the change in their behavior that you've noticed over time that is starting to bring you concern, that is giving your spiritual, emotional receptors reason to pay attention in a way that your intellect maybe hasn't yet, right? So these are definitely signs of burnout to pay attention to. Number 2 is physical symptoms. Look at the physical signs of burnout. Are they tired and continuously fatigued all the time? Do they talk about headaches and migraines and digestive issues? Do they come up in rashes and boils and cysts and things like that? Do they have to go into the hospital a lot for no apparent reason? They're not having accidents, they're not changing their diet, etc. But all of a sudden their immune system seems to be failing. Are they getting ill frequently? Are they having a changing appetite or sleeping patterns? Are they complaining of not sleeping well or eating well? Um, What is it? Are they experiencing? Are they struggling in general um, to think, to do basic things? Are they forgetting things? Are they leaving their car keys in certain places? Are they? What are the things that are doing that is having physical symptoms? Pay attention to those things and take note over time, right? So that's, I said, number one, as 5 signs to recognize burnout in other people to help loved ones in need is changes in behavior, paying attention to those, and look at what information you're receiving, which may not be intellectual. Number two is looking for physical symptoms, especially if it's going on over time. Number three is, are they experiencing emotional exhaustion? Are they um, do they seem emotionally drained? Are they seeming overwhelmed or hopeless? Have they lost hope in certain things? Have they lost their zest for life? They might be frustrated more. They might make signals that they feel helpless, right? And especially in this day and age where there's so many things happening in the world that we have no control over individually a lot of the time, or we're trying to tackle things that just seem so huge on a global issue that we can feel helpless individually, and it's absolutely natural to feel that way. But is it getting to a stage where your functions are starting to fail as a result? Like, you're so hopeless, it's like, what's the point? You know, are they going through that? Paying attention to that. Are they experiencing a lack of motivation? Like, the things that used to excite them just aren't exciting them anymore. Usually there are certain things you can do to get them into a good mood or to get them to process their emotions, but those things aren't working anymore. They're going to therapy and nothing's really changing. They're going to sports and activities, nothing really changing. Even going for their morning run isn't really doing it for them anymore. The gym, they're not really feeling it. Their favorite foods don't seem to kick it anymore. Like, you make them a dessert that they always used to talk about, and now they don't even finish it. Are they emotionally drained? You're having conversations where you usually go back and forth with ideas and stuff, and they just seem to be bland about things right now, and they don't seem to be engaged in conversation. What are those signs that you're seeing? Pay attention to your friends, your family, your loved ones. Pay attention to what seems to be going grayscale instead of technicolor, right? So there's 5 signs of recognizing burnout in others to help those in loved ones in need. Number one is changes of behavior. Number two, physical symptoms and ailments coming up, especially over prolonged periods of time. Number three, are they experiencing emotional exhaustion? Have they stopped caring about things that they used to care about? Number four is looking at their performance. Like, are they experiencing a decline? Is it at work, for example? They're not being able to function in the way they used to. They're not thinking fast enough, or as fast as they used to. Um, are they missing deadlines for themselves as well as other people? Are they suddenly not being able to show up on time, and are they decreased productivity, for example? Are they making more mistakes than usual? Are they having a lack of enthusiasm for the task that they're doing? Paying attention to all they're doing, performance, not just in terms of work performance, but performance in general. What are the things that they're usually good at that they're not so good at anymore? Like, are there certain skills or gifts that they usually have that they're not being able to perform anymore? Are they usually, like, a singer or a saxophonist or something like that, but recently they haven't been able to spend time with it as much as they used to, or they don't even want to anymore, or when they do, they seem distracted, or they're not as into it as they used to? What are those signs? And then last but not least, definitely not least, is, are they experiencing a lack of self-care? Right? Are they neglecting themselves? Right? Are they putting themselves last all of a sudden? Are they, have you been to their house and it's an absolute tip, when they're usually pretty much OCD? Like, what's been going on that's been changing in terms of that? Have they stopped doing their exercises? Have they stopped meeting the people they usually would? Have they stopped eating healthy? Or have they stopped taking time for themselves to relax? They're just completely piling themselves on with things to do, and they're not doing what they usually do to chill out? Have they stopped, like I said before, going into social engagement? So they stopped meeting up with their friends and family, or they've stopped calling their parents or their family and loved ones, or they stopped connecting with people in any way, shape, or form. Prioritize them, to help them prioritize themselves again, put them back on their priority list. All right. And seek help if needed. Like um if you notice these five things and this has been going on for a while and they're not listening to themselves, is it time for an intervention? Is it time to get other people who care about them together and have a conversation with them about it and say, listen, I know you've said, oh, you're okay, but we've all noticed these things and we'd like to talk to you about it. Here are the things that we think might be happening that you may not be aware of. And we'd like to help you through this because we care about you. And we've noticed that you're not reaching out to us anymore. You may not feel like you can reach out to us, but we want you to know that we're there for you. These are the things we found out that we could help you with. We've all put our money together and we've got you like all these therapy sessions. Um, we have, there's this trip that you've always wanted to go on that we've booked you for over the next week. And we've spoken to your work about it and they've given you the time off. Like, what is it that you can do for your friends and family when they're in need, where you can intervene, you can interject, you can disrupt the pattern that they seem to be going down so that you can help them return? One of the things that a friend of mine, a couple of friends of mine did, which was just phenomenal. Like I said in a few of these episodes, is I'm really grateful for the friends I've had and have and will have, for the things that they do for me in a way that sometimes is a demonstration of how I need to show up for myself. One of my friends said, "Okay, cool. We'll catch up. It's been a long time, and I'll meet you at this place at this time, and we'll have a catch up. We'll get some food." Okay, perfect. I show up. I'm a little bit early. And then I see another friend of mine I haven't seen in ages. And I'm like, oh my gosh, so good to see you. I haven't seen you in ages. Like, we need to catch up again. Where are you going? And he says where he's going. I'm like, oh, snap, I'm going there as well. Let's talk and walk, right? So we get there and we're like, oh my gosh, this is dope. Who you here to meet? And he says who he's here to meet. And I say, wait, I'm here to meet so and so. And those are two are best friends. I'm like, what are the chances? Such a small world, right? So we get there and we go through the door and I say, okay, I'm so and so. I'm meant to be meeting so and so. And the woman at the door says, oh, okay. And does that mean you're so and so? And he's like, yeah. And then she's like, okay, cool. Both of you come with me. And we're like, okay, cool. Maybe they're here already. We get to the table, there's only two seats. And she's like, okay, yeah, this table's for you. And we both sit down. We're like, but we're meant to be meeting separate people. There should be four seats, if anything. And then she gives us these envelopes, right? She gives us these envelopes. And mine basically reads that the friend who had invited me said, please don't hate me, but I've noticed that there's been a change in your demeanor. All these things have been happening recently. And I feel like you need to connect with someone who is going through something similar. So I planned with his friend, um, for you two to spend time together. And in the envelope had like cash for the meal. And we both looked at each other and we were angry and happy and just grateful, or just a whole mix of emotions, like the deceit, but then also the love, right? It was such an incredible gesture of how much we meant to them, but then also how much we meant to each other, that they could see. And we realized that we hadn't actually spent time with each other. And this was a perfect opportunity because we were both people who hold space for other people, which was another reason why both of our friends did that, is they recognized that we were holding space for other people and we didn't have space held for each other. And so this was an opportunity for us to go through it. And it was only really when we started talking to each other that evening that we realized what both of us were actually going through, and both of us were going through the same thing. It was around the time when there was a lot of stuff happening globally with the Black community. We were opening up spaces to have discussions and stuff, the kind of spaces that we needed. But because we were facilitators, we weren't having that need met for ourselves. So we'd go needing this space, hold it for other people, but not get out of it what those were getting out of it. And so we were being depleted over time. And our friends recognized that, but they also recognized that we weren't, because we were the people who were usually holding space for other people, we also weren't the ones who were going to then ask for help, evidently. So they arranged this plot so that we could spend time with each other. And it was a beautiful evening. And I'm saying this to say that that is what an intervention can look like. If you notice something, how can you interject? How can you get them into a space to open up? How can you show them, prove to them that you are a safe space for them to share whatever they're going through with? And how, if it's not just you, can you organize it with someone else or a group of people to create that space? You know, for example, is it something where you are to book something weeks in advance with them to make sure that they have that time set aside, and then bring someone else that they love, or like a whole group of people that they haven't seen in a long time? Like when people arrange like a surprise birthday party, and just do it not just on their birthday, just on a Tuesday, just to celebrate them and remind them that they're loved, and have the thing where you do something exciting, but then also have a thing where you also say, okay, cool, the other reason why we're here is because we're concerned, like we care about you, and we want to remind you of that. you know so just to recap, that is today's on 5 signs to recognize burnout in others and help loved ones in need. Number 1 is recognizing changes in behavior. Number 2, yes, Millie. Number 2 is physical symptoms of burnout. What is it that they're showing that are physical ailments? Number 3 is emotional exhaustion. What are the emotional ailments that they're going through? Are they detached? Are they drained, etc.? Number 4 is decline in performance. Are they forgetful? Are they unattentive? Are they distracted all the time? Are they making mistakes a lot at work and at home? Number 5 is lack of self-care, or they're not taking care of themselves, or they're not putting themselves as priority anymore. Those are like 5 ways to recognize the signs in other people. But here is the kicker. This session, obviously, I'm talking about 5 signs to recognize burnout in others and help loved ones in need. But you can also apply this to yourself. Those are also 5 signs to recognize burnout in yourself if you don't recognize it yet, and you being the one in need. Are you experiencing a change of behavior? Are you experiencing physical symptoms? Are you emotionally drained and exhausted and not having excitement for anything anymore? Are you experiencing a decline in performance? Can you not think? Are you forgetful? Are you making mistakes, etc.? Are you having a lack of enthusiasm, for example? Are you experiencing a lack of self-care? Have you forgotten yourself in your priority list? Are you thinking about everyone else but yourself? Have you bathed? Have you eaten this morning? All those things. Have you been keeping yourself hydrated? Right? Um, like all those things are things you can apply to yourself, because we need you. We do. We need you. Okay, when we need you to be like, when you go to an aircraft or you're traveling, one of the things they say is that, if they're in a form in the event of an emergency, and the oxygen mask will come down, you need to put the mask on yourself first before you put it on other people, because otherwise you'll be useless, right? So you will both like lose it, if you don't tend to yourself first. A friend of mine once said that the greatest gift that you can give to someone else is your own healing, but that can apply to so many other things as well. The gift I can give to you is for me to be able to show up at my best, and the one way to do that is to take care of myself. Make sure my needs are met, so that I'm not putting that pressure on you or anybody else, or expectation of it. Make sure my needs are met so that when I come to you, I can be at my fullest. If I come to you drained and depleted, I'm not going to be able to function for you, right? So it's actually in my best interest and also your best interest for me to look after myself and make sure I get my time to rest, get my time to drink and eat and be merry and to do those things that excite me. You know, I remember seeing a situation recently at an event where this guy was losing it. He was loving the music. He was going for it. And then all his friends, well, not all his friends, but maybe his girlfriend, I assume, the number one person who would, in this event, seem to have the clout to change his behavior, basically stopped him and said, "What are you doing? You're embarrassing yourself." And then he stopped. You could see his whole demeanor drop. Like he lost this. It's like he just went from color to black and white. It just poof, like gone. And I thought to myself, wow, imagine that. Imagine that, like putting someone else in front of yourself, so much so that you would allow them to rob you of the joy you were experiencing that moment. And I would question, like, what kind of a friend is that? you know, yes, it might be embarrassing, but it's also giving them life. Imagine if you call all these things childish, and so there's nothing left, and all that's left is work and seriousness. That person is definitely going to drive themselves into burnout, because I've done a whole session of the effect of joy as a tool against burnout, as a weapon against burnout. Like, we need joy in our lives. We need moments of lightheartedness, because otherwise things get too heavy too fast, and there's no way to get ourselves out of it otherwise, right? And gave the example of comic relief when you're talking about something where a comic will take you down a really dark road and then break the tension with comedy. And when you laugh, the release you get can make you feel better than you were when the joke even started, right? And it's the same thing with joy and laughter and empathy and all those things. When you experience those things, it's a release. If you don't allow yourself that release by putting yourself first, and if you don't allow other people to do it, then it's not going to serve anybody, right? So pay attention to your friends. Are they experiencing changes in behavior? Are they experiencing physical symptoms? Are they experiencing emotional exhaustion, reduced performance, and lack of self-care? And are you experiencing those things? Right. So if this is something that has sparked up something within you, because I think a lot of the times, when I first heard about this concept of burnout, there was something that triggered in me. I recognized it in myself, right? And it really made me stop and think for a moment, and thought to myself, what is it that I'm doing that is leading me towards burnout? But what is it that I'm noticing in friends that are doing the same? And you can help those friends navigate through their challenges. You can help them regain balance. You can help them cultivate that resilience if you notice those 5 signs and you intervene. It's not enough to notice it and then just sit back. One of the things I really don't like about this culture in the West is when people are going through something, you leave them to handle it themselves. And I genuinely think that's one of the problems in this you know developed society, which leads to people taking their lives at the end of the day, or experiencing things like burnout, is when you're going through something, people step back instead of step forward. And I've seen it. People experiencing grief, which is another emotional trigger for burnout. If you're experiencing grief and you don't deal with it, it will have heavy emotional consequences, which will reduce your capacity to do some of the basic functions that you might need to eat or sleep or to function or to think, right? And if you recognize it in other people, but then this culture tells you, okay, they need space, and so you step back, then it means they're handling it on their own. And there are certain things that shouldn't be that way. Like, we need to experience things together. We're not designed to do things in silos. You can sit in a space and not speak all the time, because one of the things is, oh, what would I say? You don't need to say anything all the time. Sometimes it's just about being there for someone, being an ear, listening, you know, giving them a space to just share this thing and be like, okay, cool. Do you know what? What do you need? Let them tell you what they need. You don't need to come up with the answers all the time. Okay, I just need someone to listen to me today. Okay, cool. I can listen. I can do that. Okay, I need kind of advice today. Okay, cool. I can do that. I can help you. And if I don't have the advice, then I might know someone who might be able to help. I need time. I need I need a hug, right? All these can't happen if people just withdraw from the people who are in need, right? Back home in Sierra Leone, if you're going through something, they are on you. It's like, what do you need? Like, what's going on? How can I help? And sometimes it can be the other side of the scale, right? It can be too much. You want your privacy after that. But one of the things I can't help but notice is like it helps you process things when you do it with someone else, especially with other people who have experienced what you're experiencing in some kind of way, shape, or form. It's not going to be exactly the same. But when you're going through it in community, it really helps you process and go through something, right? One of the other things, that's not necessarily a sign, but it's a trigger. And I'm gonna do an episode on triggers. And I think next week, actually, I'm going to do a session with Matty on LinkedIn specifically about triggers. Because, for example, if there is something that has happened in your life that is significant and it has an emotional quotient, it can often be a trigger for burnout. And so there's a skill in identifying what those are. It's a lot easier in hindsight. But as you were going through things, recognizing that, okay, cool, I'm feeling some kind of a way about this. Um, I've had to cut off a friend. I've lost a friend. I've changed jobs, changed house. I've had a baby, and now my identity has changed from a man to a father. All those kind of things will be triggers. And sometimes, if we don't deal with those things, you can have post traumatic stress disorder. Um, you can have PTSD, obviously. You can have, yeah, all kinds of things can happen as a result. So I'm going to do a whole separate thing about that. So I hope today has been really helpful. If it's something that you need, and like I said before, I'm giving all this information away for free because it's the implementation that is the hardest part. We know all these things intellectually, we know what we need to do, but it's actually implementing those that can be the problem. So if this is you and it's something you've gone through before, you find yourself in burnout and you're completely always in this cycle, or you've got friends who are in this cycle repeatedly and you don't really know how to help and you need help to implement that, let's book a call. If you're on YouTube or LinkedIn, there is a QR code here and here that you'll be able to book with me. And let's talk about it. Let's talk about how I can help. It's 30 minutes, and it's not a session. I'm not going to necessarily just turn things around because that is what we would work with together. But I'll listen and I'll see what it is that I can maybe give, like maybe some tips or ideas. And if this is something that you need your hand held through, or you need a more in-depth help with, then we'll see what kind of how you can become a client of mine, and we can help you work through it, whether it's like on an individual session basis or whether it's a program I can help you with, right? And it's the same for you too on Instagram. Get in touch, DM me, and I'll see how I can help. It's really important that we don't do this ourselves, but it's also really important that we don't allow others, or not allow, but we don't leave others to go through it alone as well. It really doesn't help anybody. You know what it feels like when you need someone, when you're going through something. You know what it's like when you feel like you're going through something and you feel like whenever you talk to them about something, you feel like they can't handle it, and so they walk away from you. We know what that feels like. It can trigger all kinds of abandonment, etc., on top of whatever you're already dealing with. So let's not be that for other people. When they're in need, intervene. Identify the signs that they're going through something, even when they don't identify it in themselves, and raise it up with them continuously. Sometimes one of the things we do often, we point it out once and we're like, oh yeah, they said no, and then that's the end of it. Are you mad? Are you lost your senses? Sometimes people need that coaching. Sometimes people need that you know that encouragement over time. That person could have had all kinds of experiences in the past which have made it really difficult for them to speak up, and so you're going to need more than one attempt to reach this person, right? And if you really care about them, consider spending time actually continuously looking into how to help them. Don't just fall back after one attempt and say, I tried. You haven't really, right? So, and this is not an attack, it's just I genuinely see this in spaces where people are really struggling and the people around them are using that as an excuse not to be there for them. And it's really difficult to see, and it can lead to all kinds of things. Like I said before, you read the news, you see what's happening. So book that call, book that 30 minutes. We'll talk about how I can help, but then also how we can get you onto a program if necessary, on what resources I have available, what books you can read. Actually, I'll do a session on books as well, because there's some really good books on burnout that will help. And until tomorrow, actually, if you're watching this live on the 15th of May, this evening, we're having a session on burnout on LinkedIn, on overwhelm. Are you experiencing overwhelm? Right. And we're going to be looking deep into that. So there's like two elements of overwhelm I just want to talk about really quickly. Is if we look at it in terms of capacity, do you have a small capacity, but then a huge list of things that you need to get done, for example, or you've got too much to deal with? Or do you have a large capacity and you don't have enough to get done? And so you have all this energy, but nothing to put it into. That can also lead to burnout and overwhelm in the reverse. Something that people don't also talk about, but is really also just as important. All right. So hopefully I'll see you this evening on LinkedIn on the 15th of May, 7 o'clock UK time. And I'm not sure what time you are, but it'll be the equivalent. And otherwise, keep tuning in. I'm doing these talks every morning for the month of May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month. Somewhere between 6 and 6:30 is when I'm going to be starting each session, and they're usually about half an hour. Today is looking like 37 minutes. And I'll see you again tomorrow.